If there was one word you would use to respond to all of those people who'd written you off then, what would that word be?
Irrelevant. I just want to be able to tell women that you have to stand up and fight. Yes, I'm 49 years old. I've kissed my share of frogs. I had a total hysterectomy, which is my ovaries, my uterus, and I'm talking about this in public because we need to talk about it. Most people don't talk about menopause and it's one of the things that are not talked about. I had a total hysterectomy on the 8th of January. 8 days after, they're asking me to leave on the 16th.
Are you looking forward to sparring with the Prime Minister
It's
sooner
impossible,
rather than later?
It's how do you spar with the Prime Minister who's too scared to come to Parliament? It's an absolute vote against Modi. On the last day in UP, when the temperature was 17 home guards died in one day. Is that not murder?
You said they lost. That's the phrase you used. They say they're forming the government, so they've won.
UP
Yes.
has 80 seats.
Yes.
Bengal has 42 seats. Maharashtra has 48 seats. These three states together are 170, exactly a third of India. Please understand. And the BJP has got only 54 seats in these three states out of 170. They are not even at a third of a third. Please understand how poor it is.
Mahua Moitra, till a few months ago, the story was very different. You'd been thrown out of Parliament. You had the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate literally knocking down your door. And there were people who were writing your political obituary. If there was one word you would use to respond to all of those people who'd written you off then, what would that word be?
Irrelevant.
How does it feel?
It feels good, but I know you said at the beginning before we started the interview that this was going to be a Mahua interview.
Yeah.
But really, it's not a Mahua moment right now. I'm happy I won, but I knew I would win.
Not even a moment of doubt, anxiety, nervousness?
Nothing at all. I knew I would win all throughout. But I feel, I'm happy. It feels amazing that about Bengal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy I won, yes. But I'm much happier that we not only won Bengal, but we gave them a very resounding answer to everything, that Bengal is everything that the BJP is against everything that the BJP stands for. And I am most happy that all over India, that we can breathe again. Because this atmosphere of fear, where everybody said, let's get on WhatsApp calls, where you can't speak freely, or where inse dosti mat karo, where they try to make people radioactive. I think even if a little bit of that goes away, we've gone a long way in reclaiming our democracy.
I'll come to the national politics, but you don't want this to be a Mahua moment, but there is a Mahua moment also. Maybe it wouldn't have been as much of a Mahua moment had they not thrown you out of Parliament, had they not effectively accused you of being corrupt. That case is still ongoing. The CBI and the ED, in the middle of the campaign, did raid your homes.
Yes.
Your mother was at home, I think, when they came knocking.
And my mother patted them down as well.
She did?
She patted them down to make sure they weren't planting anything. And they've only counted 82 of my saris. So I'm sure there's 2 cupboards left. I'm sure they'll come back. They've called my friend Darshan twice. I'm sure they'll call him again. They've called the CPWD about 4 times. And I'm sure they'll find people who manufacture my handkerchiefs and inquire whether they're French lace or anything else. So I wish the CBI luck. And so they're doing, like I said, they will do what they have to do, and we've done what we had to do.
But I remember talking to you in the aftermath, or in fact, in the middle of that entire investigation, and I asked you then, could you have done something different? Do you regret anything you did? And you said no then. You've had a few months since then. Let me ask you the same thing again. Any regrets?
Not at all. Not at all. Barkha, I have always been very sure of, I'm a conviction person. I'm a conviction politician. I'm not a consensus person. I'm not a consensus politician. I mean, that's what you get. Whether you like it, whether you don't. So that sometimes works against me. But in times like this, when times are down, I don't look to anyone else for support. It comes from within. And if I feel I'm correct, I can go.
But did you feel alone in these last few months?
Not really. The courage of right is thy garland. That's the song of my alma mater, Mount Holyoke. And the courage of right was my garland. I believe that if you have right on your side, it's Akla Chalo the whole way. And no, I wasn't alone. My party supported me, my leader, Mamata Di. I mean, hats off to her. Any other party would have really had their moments. But Mamata Di, it was as much her battle as it was mine.
Did you ever worry that she would not give you a ticket, abandon you, not stand by you?
Nothing like that. Nothing like that. Because I know who she is. That's why I love her. That's why I'm in this party. I know who she is. And imagine today, Barkha, people like you and I, I'm going to be 50. I think you're in your 50s.
52.
Mamata Di is almost 70. So, and imagine the journey she must have fought for the last 40 years. We are in a much better, when we complain of misogyny, it's not even 50% of what it used to be 30 years ago. So imagine, with no godfather in politics, the fight she fought in a completely patriarchal society and came up and did what she liked. So I knew there was one person who would understand, it would be her.
But I do want to talk about misogyny, because one part of what happened to you was the expulsion from Parliament, the allegations of, the fact that you received gifts or cash for asking questions
no
in
cash.
Parliament.
There wasn't anything.
It was dubbed the cash for queries
right.
scam. You said, I got no cash. He was my friend. Darshan was my friend. He gave me a few gifts. That's the position you took. I'm saying that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is that someone you've been previously in a relationship with decides to go public with personal details. You have said distorted personal details, and suddenly photographs which are from private moments that make their way on social media. It's like your entire part of your personal life is playing out in a kind of peanut gallery. What did that feel like?
It feels, the first few days I was really shocked. And then you think, how low can a person go? And then you realize there really is no limit to how low people can go. And then I said, you know what? It's his karma. It's his karma. It's not my karma. If you decide at your birthday party, a photograph is being taken on your phone, and you decide his birthday party, and a photograph's been taken, you decide to cut that out and put me out and put that out and give it to the troll cell, and you think that gets you clients or it does you something good in your life, then ultimately good for you. Because I certainly knew that the people who loved me and the people who voted for me and the people who applaud who I stand for weren't the least bit bothered as to whether I wore a dress or whether I had the occasional, glass of bubbly once in a while. So once, I think, if you're sure of yourself, they can't get to you. And I remember in my last interview to you, I had said that if at the end of this, I can prove that that women in politics can survive by being true to themselves, then it's all worth it.
But Hillary Clinton once said to me that women in public lives have to develop a skin as thick as the hide of a rhinoceros.
Absolutely. Times two. You just have to get to a point where you have to say it's irrelevant and not bother.
But the commentary is always moral, it's sexualized. Everybody has an opinion on what you wear, who you have been with, who you might be with, whether you smoke, whether you drink.
Because they're all a bunch of losers. Honestly, they're all a bunch of losers, because I don't have the time, frankly, to sit and, go on Twitter about who's wearing what and what they're eating for breakfast and what their source of energy may be. I'm not bothered. So if it gives the BJP, and this is frankly a very right-wing Hindutva troll Sena kind of narrative, which all of India is propagating today. So whoever feeds into that or buys into that, they're basically a bunch of losers. They're muppets with nothing to do. And if looking at me and they feel I am the antithesis of everything they stand for. So if they think they can bury me, then they feel good about themselves, right? If some loser ex of mine gets his name on some dumbass show twice and people are now calling him for expert opinions, good for him. I honestly feel happy.
Loser ex of mine is going to be the viral.
No. He's already filed for defamation and taken that back. So I'm sure this will lead to another defamation suit. So we'll deal with that. It's okay. But I think that's not even the point. The point is that, look, if ultimately if it helps you, go for it. Because there's no way anyone was going to ask you for an expert opinion if you hadn't been linked to Mahmoud.
Do you feel hurt, angry, cynical when it happened?
I feel none of those things. Sometimes things have to happen because they have to happen. I'm very karmic that way. What will happen will happen. And it's how you deal with it. You can't control what happens to you. right? You can only deal with it as best as you can. So it's how I dealt with it. And this is all, to me, it's irrelevant. To me, this all takes away from me as a politician. For me, this takes away from my fight. I mean, I'm only angry that the narrative was not about me fighting the BJP, and the narrative was not about me fighting Modi. The narrative was me getting into some brawl with some Jharkhandi piece of, you know what, fecal matter.
Why would you use a phrase like that? That's not typically how you express yourself.
I think I use the piece of, because I think I'm also a human being. I'm also a human being, and I think people have to realize that all of us who are public representatives are also human beings, and that we are also, it's important for us as women to keep it real. Right? And I think all of this, at the end of it, I've had so many people come up to me and said, you know, this has also happened to me. I've been attacked like this by this and this. And we've all been in situations like this in our life.
Sure.
And we've hidden it, and we've not talked about it, and we've not taken it on the chin. And we've all kissed our share of frogs, as one of my friends put it. And that's okay. And I think it's very important for women to be able to come out and say, yes, you know, I'm 49 years old. I've kissed my share of frogs. It's okay.
Did you ever feel the pressure to make your life less high profile, less public?
I'm not a public person. I'm not a public person. I'm not a...
I mean, you're in the public space,
I'm
so
in the
therefore
public...
automatically
Yeah,
your life
I don't
becomes
do
public.
anything. I mean, I don't go out searching. Like, you know, I've not... You're the first person I've given an interview to.
Yeah.
I've given an interview to. The media always complain about that I don't answer my phone, which is true, I don't. They complain about the fact that they've got to keep running after me. I don't seek them out. So if I were a publicity seeking person, you asked me for the interview.
Of course I did.
Many
Of
times,
course.
which is why I said yes.
I harangued you till you said
did.
yes.
So
yes.
it's, you know, so it's not like, so it's not that I'm in the public. I don't put my life out in
No,
the
I
public
mean,
domain.
people follow your life.
But that's okay. That's okay. That's part of the perils. But also you have to understand this. It's not just a downside. There's also so much love and affection. I don't see the negatives
Of course.
I love
agree
it.
with
I mean,
that.
come on. During this time, in the last 7 months, complete strangers walked up to me in like public washrooms, on aeroplanes, in the metro station, and came and said, "Keep fighting. We are with you. We are with you."
Yeah.
And you get so much love and strength from strangers. And then you realize that you have to be more than just yourself.
I agree with that.
You know,
I
and
agree
that's
with
what
that.
it's about.
When you heard that you had won, when it was official and you knew it for sure, what's the first thing you did?
You know, Barkha, I know it sounds funny, but I knew I was going to win.
Okay,
and I was
but you
watching
still
the
needed that
counting.
actualization.
Yeah,
to take
but the
place.
actualization is not an aha moment. It's not like you're in a black box and suddenly it's not like winning a lottery. You're sitting in the counting and you're going from room to room. So you actually know. And in my head, I know my 82 panchayats. I have an expected result of each of them. I have 7 assemblies. So in the counting, I'm going from room to room to room. So for me, it wasn't about winning. It was about, is each panchayat or this booth delivering what it said it would?
Yeah.
So that's just it. So by round 1, I was up 18,000. By round 2, I was up 32,000. By round 4, I was up 65. So it was in line with expectations.
What does this victory signify to you?
It signifies that that in spite of everything, the victory doesn't signify much for me, because there are people whose stories and whose victories, frankly, signify much more than mine. I think the fact that Avdesh ji won
In Ayodhya.
Faizabad is much more significant than mine. The fact that we in Bengal went up from 23 seats to 29 seats is much more significant than mine. So I think there are many more stories that are more significant than mine. But in terms of, if you're looking at it from the narrow perspective of, okay, just Mahua's story, then it shows I just want to be able to tell women that you have to stand up and fight. And if you stand up and fight, then all these little patriarchal, misogynist little pieces of fecal matter are all going to fade away into the dust.
I tend to have the same mindset, but a lot of women find fighting exhausting and they withdraw from the battleground rather than fight.
But the issue with that is, see, if you are only fighting for yourself, then probably if you're exhausted, you're tired, you say, what? I don't have that luxury. I am a public representative. It's not that they expelled me. They denied the right of representation to my entire constituency, who have a right to have a representative in parliament. On a flimsy charge, a completely illegal charge, I was fighting for them. They, got a trumped up charge. I was fighting for everybody in opposition who had been on trumped up charges. The misogyny that they were meting out to be. If I hadn't fought back, it meant lakhs and lakhs of women everywhere should sit back and just take whatever's meted to us. So for me, I had to fight back. I didn't have the luxury of saying, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I'll give you a small example. I had a total hysterectomy, so which is my ovaries, my uterus, and I'm talking about this in public because we need to talk about it. Most people don't talk about menopause, and it's one of the things that are not talked about. I had a total hysterectomy on the 8th of January. I was released from hospital on the 11th or the 12th, I think. It was a 4.5-hour surgery. On the 16th, so barely a week after, I was in my government accommodation, and you have the right to pay market rent and keep it. When I was up, I was running again. I'd been given the ticket again.
Yeah.
So it was, if I lose, I will give it up, and if I don't, then 3 months I'm not well.
Yeah.
I will pay market rent and stay. The additional Solicitor General, and I will name him, Chetan Sharma, stood up in court on behalf of the BJP government and actually questioned that, please see her timing of her surgery, alluding to the fact that perhaps my surgery was made up to live in a government house. I mean, honestly, he stood up and lied and said there are 2,000 people in line waiting to take that house. That house is still lying vacant, right? So all of that, they stood up in court and said, tomorrow morning, if she's not out, we will use force. And of course, I had moved out. I moved out the whole night. I stood the whole night, got everything packed.
And this is after your hysterectomy.
8 days after, with my medical reports given to the Delhi High Court. My medical reports are lying with the Delhi High Court saying, I've come out of ICU 3 days ago. I've been discharged on the 12th. They're asking me to leave on the 16th. And in the morning, there were 200 policemen, 2 SHOs, and the entire BJP media waiting to see if Mahua Moitra was going to be dragged kicking and screaming out of the house. But Mahua Moitra had already cleaned out the house and given the keys and swept everything up and said, good luck to you. But I'm just saying that that's the level to which this government went to, and everybody saw it. So, when people, when they've lost this time, they've also lost because at some level, Indians are not petty. We are used to joint families. We have a thing, it's chhod do na, ab bahut ho gaya. Even everybody in India, at the end of it, even the most vengeful person says, ab bahut ho gaya. It's like we're a God-fearing person. We're a God-fearing race. So when Modi says, I'm the Paramatma, people say, ab bahut ho gaya, ab rehne dete. So I think even in my case, it was a bit of that. They were like, theek hai, nikal diya, ye kar diya, wo kar diya, but everything was, they just don't know where to stop.
You said they lost. That's the phrase you used. They say they're forming the government, so they've won.
Okay.
They've been
okay. So
okay,
I saw this lovely, and I don't know this gentleman, but I'm going to quote this to
Okay.
you. It's like 2 people fighting each other like this, and I saw this. I saw it on a video somebody sent me, but it's the best analogy of this Pyrrhic victory that they claim they've won. And I will explain it to you because, of course, the Sanghis won't know what a Pyrrhic victory is. So it's like 2 people fighting each other like this, and they go like that. And the BJP stands up and says, "Mujhe to kuch nahi hua, talwar to mujhe nahi chua." And the opposition, the India bloc, say, "Ha, par aapka pajama ke nara mere haath mein hai." And the BJP looks down and they find that their pants are falling off. So what do? They put their talwar down and they hold their pajamas with both their hands. And then the opposition says, "Main nahi rukne wala hu. Aapke pajama ke nara mere haath mein hai." And then suddenly the BJP realizes that they can't let their pajamas go because the allies that they've got, they've had before. And they can't really rubber stamp their continuity. So what they do is they realize they can't give their pajamas to anyone else to hold. So they hold on to their pajamas, right? So this is what's happened now, is that the BJP they've won, they're holding on to their pajamas. We have the Nara in our hand. But most important, the BJP can't pick up the talwar anymore because he has to hold the pajama in both his hands. So this is, I think, the best analogy of their victory.
But the BJP we can expect this because we're all hard-nosed cynics who've either been in politics or followed politics for a long time, will try and shore up their numbers to 272 by eventually either breaking
parties. Of course, it's what Aditya Thackeray said. He said a piece of advice to their alliance partners, try and get the speaker because we've seen what these guys will do. So, like we said, like my leader said yesterday, we will wait and watch because please understand, it's not even with the allies. They've got two main allies. So they are at 240 on their own.
Yeah.
They've got one ally with 16 and one ally with 12. These are the two main allies. That even that gives you what, 268, even with two main blocks, right?
Yeah.
So en bloc, they can't even get 272 with their two main allies.
So you believe the government won't last the 5 years?
It's up for Indian democracy to tell, but all we can say is, look, it's not, I don't see this, it's not that the government lasts or it doesn't last. The mandate that they have is not the same mandate that they had last time.
Agreed.
So this riding roughshod over democracy. This time the Congress have 100 MPs. We have 29 MPs. Akhilesh has almost 40 MPs. The DMK have over 25 MPs. With all of their rabble, they have barely, we have almost as much. Right? I mean, with 23 MPs, we made their life miserable last time. Can you imagine with our numbers this time what their life is going to be like? So they are all their sort of, grandiose plans of UCC, about NRC, about all of those things. So I think that kind of, I would say, complete breakdown of the democratic system. And I think also people will realize, so institutions that have been destroyed, the judiciary, the media, the Election Commission, the Human Rights Commission, the Women and Children Commission, the Lokpal, all of these institutions that today are just crawling, sooner or later, they will realize that, oh God, we better try and stand up straight because sub state elections are in. Sooner or later, if the next government is not by these people, then we'll be in trouble. So,
but it's sad that any institution should depend on who's in power.
But that's
Ideally,
the nature. But that's the nature of the beast in India. That's the nature of the beast in India. And I think we have never seen anything so blatant as we have this election commission, where the Supreme Court said that the CGI, one person from the government and the leader of the opposition, and Modi basically said no CGI, and he and Amit Shah, and so 2/3 majority, they picked the election commissioners. And I tweeted, I said that we have won in spite of the election commission, not because of it. I mean, can you imagine right from day one from Banswara, where Modi said all that filth, that absolute filth, they should have shut him up immediately. And that the election commission chose to hide behind these false equivalences and said, oh, but isko nahi chure, uske nahi chure. Nobody was as egregiously in violation of every code of conduct as Modi was. And so I think they played a very shameful role in this election, and they will be really go down in ignominy for their role.
Modi lost Banswara. That was among the seats that was lost by the BJP. Ayodhya was lost by the BJP.
Ayodhya was lost. All the seats around Ayodhya. So Amethi was lost. Basti was lost. All of them.
Shravasti was lost.
Shravasti was lost. You also see when they talked about, when I met Avdeshji just now, I had to get my ID. And I said, congratulations, aap jeet gaye. He said, Prabhu Ram ne jeeta. That's absolutely right, because Lord Ram has said, not in my name. That's what he said, because if you think about, they lost Banda, which has Chitrakoot, where he meditated, right? You lost Shravasti, where Nripen Mishra's son went around saying, my father's built the temple, my father's built the temple. You lost Amethi. You lost everywhere where you said, and now you're being forced to say Jai Jagannath. I mean, that's where it's come down to.
What is Parliament going to look like? And are you looking forward to sparring with the Prime Minister sooner rather than later?
It's how do you spar with the Prime Minister who's too scared to come to Parliament? The Prime Minister never attends Parliament. He only comes in and he sits for the maximum of 2 minutes, unless it's where he has to reply to something, and then he leaves. So the question of him answering questions or being present for a debate, or we've seen the last 5 years, he doesn't attend Parliament. He's scared to attend Parliament. And, now I think hopefully with the Varanasi, I mean, if you think about it, Smriti Irani lost with a greater margin than Narendra Modi won by. I mean, if that isn't sweet justice, I don't know what is, right? So I think if he has any fear, but he's exceedingly shameless. Narendra Modi is an exceedingly shameless man. I don't think he will change.
Let me argue just for a moment from the BJP side. The BJP looks at these numbers and says, our main debacle has been in Uttar Pradesh. We didn't do what we thought we would in Bengal, and we didn't do well in Maharashtra. But they argue that there's no pan-India story because Madhya Pradesh, for example, they've done very well.
1 minute. UP,
Yes.
has 80 seats.
Yes.
Bengal has 42 seats. Maharashtra has 48 seats. These three states together are 170, exactly a third of India. Please understand. And the BJP has got only 54 seats in these three states out of 170. They are not even at a third of a third. Please understand how poor it is. Right? Just think of how poorly they have done. Because these are not our words. They say who rules UP rules India. We don't say it. We don't say it. You say it. You say Lord Ram will take us all to the path of glory. Well, he hasn't taken you down the path of glory. You said that this temple in a country where education, unemployment, inflation are the biggest problems, you choose to make a temple, a half-finished temple, the center of your political narrative and India's political narrative? I mean, tell me this. And then you're telling us that oh, by the way, it was your story, your narrative. You fell flat on your face.
You being BJP, not me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is the message of this election? The 239, 240, wherever it last ended for the BJP. If you had to extrapolate, not wearing your TMC hat, but wearing an analyst's hat, what do you see?
It's an absolute vote against Modi. And in that way, he's been defeated because the BJP is no party, right? There's no party. This is not a party. This is like a cult of Modi. So when people say, well, Mahua, why do you attack Mr. Modi personally? I said, Mr. Modi is who do I attack? The finance minister? Mr. Modi announced demonetization. When you have anything to do with any foreign affairs, for example, even something will bring hostages back. Papa! Modi ne war rukwa diya. Right? So that's Modi, right? So everything is Mr. Modi. So who do you attack? So in this case, they ran an 80-day election to give Modi enough time to canvass from Kanyakumari to Kashmir and east to west and killed. The election commission murdered close to 150 people from heat stroke because you knew that you have temperatures between 45 and 50 degrees.
You hold the election commission
I hold them
for those
culpable.
deaths?
It is not culpable homicide. It is murder because you know what would happen. On the last day in UP, when the temperatures were 17 home guards died in one day. Is that not murder? Where you are putting a country with temperatures ranging from 45 to 50 degrees and you're putting polling personnel and security personnel in this heat through a 7-phase election through 80 days to allow the prime minister to be able to campaign. So Modi was the candidate in 543 seats. In Bengal, they said Modi 42 candidate. He's the candidate in 42 seats. So when Modi was the candidate, then he should have got simple majority. And the public didn't give him that. So I think that's the most important, where everybody said, we do not want Modi 3.0, or certainly not in the form and substance that he was in Modi 2.0. That's the main message from this election, is that Modi cannot continue to govern India the way he has been governing India.
Looking back, do you believe that if the India Alliance had started work a little sooner, if Mamata Banerjee's recommendation, she recommended that, Mr. Kharge could be the prime ministerial candidate, for instance, that there was no consensus on that had the India bloc started earlier, declared a prime ministerial candidate, things might have been even better for the opposition?
You can't tell these things. You really can't tell these things. These things happen as they go along. And I think the India bloc did a very good job, and we are going to continue to do a very good job. And I think, people told us, everyone wrote us off. Even just before the election, they said this is a ragtag bunch of people, opportunists. And look at them. Look at us, right? We've actually defeated the Goliath.
But it's very interesting that while the India Alliance seems to have reconciled for now to the fact that Modi is forming the government, your leader said...
We haven't reconciled to the fact that we've reconciled to the fact that he's taking oath. We haven't reconciled to the fact that he's going to run the government for 5 years. Not at all. And there's a difference between the two.
So how should we read that?
Modi is shameless. Anybody else in his space would have said, this was my election. It was run on my name. Someone else should be prime minister. That he should have said. Someone else from the BJP should have been prime minister. But he's such a megalomaniac that he genuinely believes he's the Paramatma. Like he said himself, that as long as my mom was alive, I thought I was born of her. The minute she passed on, I realized I was actually born of God. I mean, unless you're completely cuckoo. I mean, do you say something as that? I don't even think like the biggest megalomaniac dictators would say something like that. So I think he should have had the grace and the sense and the political sense to have stepped aside. But be that as it may, that's the BJP's problem. It's not us. So we've reconciled to the fact that he's taking oath. But it's a good thing he's taking oath because he is not listening to. And this NDA is not a National Democratic Alliance. It is a Nitish Naidu dependent alliance. So this Nitish Naidu dependent alliance, let's see how this happens.
Do you see Mamata Banerjee as a prime ministerial contender?
Of course, Mamata Banerjee is the queen. She's the queen. I mean, look at her. Honestly speaking, look at her, Barkha. People, if you're talking about me, I'm nothing. I'm just like a little ant. But if you look at Mamata Di, look at everything that she's been through. And, the BJP, look at the rubbish they were spreading, that they're going to get 32 seats and 30 seats and this and that. And, and Didi is just like, no way, I'm not accepting. She's like she said, I'm in the game. I'm playing football, I'm in there. So
Rahul Gandhi accused the government, Modi Shah, the incoming government, of being in cahoots with exit pollsters and TV news channels to rig the markets. Since you have been in finance in your previous avatar to being a politician, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I agree with him, but one slight correction. Before Rahul did the press conference, and he did a good press conference, not taking away from that, on the 5th, just the day after the election, the Trinamool's Rajya Sabha MP Saket Gokhale wrote to SEBI. So we actually put out the first letter saying that this was a complete scam where you had a sitting finance minister and a sitting prime minister and the home minister telling people to buy equities. This was absolutely insane. And the prime minister gave an interview to NDTV, which is Adani's channel, and who's got the most shady investors on the planet. And so when they found electoral bonds can no longer be used, they figured out, let's just get 5, 6, 10,000 crores via the pollsters and their owners. And that's exactly, it was a
But are you saying all of the pollsters were in cahoots? What is the actual specific allegation?
Look, the specific allegations were, how could it be? So let's look at the big houses. Who were the big houses? So not if you're looking at some little pollster who's not a public company, that's okay. If you're looking at the big pollsters, and you know which ones I am, the top 3, and you see the ones he gave interviews to, the top 3 are public limited companies who were playing the stock market. And look at their share prices. And they use the pollsters. The pollsters obviously said that the Modi is coming back. Modi said, I'm coming back, not only coming back with 400. They used the exit polls to tell people that this government is coming back when it was not, to tell people we're coming back with absolute majority, and they built the thing up so all their cronies could buy on the upswing.
You spoke about Adani. I'll come back to the exit polls, but you spoke about Adani. But the BJP has been sharing how West Bengal is just commissioned a big Adani project. And they say that this is contradictory.
We have no problem.
The opposition attacks Adani nationally, but at the state level, they welcome Adani's companies with open arms.
No, that's not, you're getting me wrong. There is no problem. Adani is a company. If there is a bid and he plays by the rules and he's a bidder in there, I'm not stopping anybody, neither is West Bengal. So if he's bidding for a project and getting it, we don't have a problem if he's one of any. If he has no pre-qualification to bid for airports and the law specifically requires you to have operated airports before you can bid for it, then how does he get airports? My question is that. My question is, how does he get Dhamra and then IOC and GAIL enter into a long-term offtake agreement with him? So we have specific questions regarding this coal. This coal scam is the biggest scam ever. He's been buying a low-grade coal, 3,500 grade coal from Indonesia and selling it as 6,000 high-grade, environmentally high-grade coal to state power companies, as a result of which you and I are all paying high electricity prices. So we have a problem with that. If Adani is doing a project like any other corporate and is bidding for a project, be it in Bengal, be it in UP, be it in Rajasthan, we have no problem with it.
Let's come back to the Sensex and the exit polls for a moment. The BJP argument is that the markets were volatile because the markets thought it was going to be a BJP government and it turned out to be a coalition government, and the markets don't like the coalition government, and that's why they crashed.
One minute.
And
so
it's
the BJP,
organic market volatility.
So listen, I mean, honestly, I mean, why do the markets think that the BJP is coming back suddenly
because
with this
of the
great
exit
thing?
polls?
Yeah, and what are the exit polls? Each of the exit polls was paid for by the BJP. Every single exit poll was paid for by the BJP. I can say that on record.
What is your basis to say that?
I mean, what do you expect? They're all run by the Godi media. Every single one of them were run. They had no methodology. Nobody put out any methodology. How could either they're all rubbish? Look, one exit poll has to get it right. All of the ones which are the Godi media, which are the Noida channels, every single one got it wrong. How could they get? That means they're anyway worthless. Look, either one of two things. Either they got it wrong because they're stupid, in which case they're irrelevant anyway and they shouldn't be in this business, or they got it wrong because they were paid to get it wrong and to create the impression of, psyching everyone out so they could get that last minute flourish. So either way, they don't deserve to.
Did these elections render legacy media irrelevant?
I'm so glad you call them legacy media. I hope they've rendered them irrelevant, but they're completely shameless. I've seen them now. And they're trying to balance themselves.
They might
and they're
pivot now,
shameless.
right? They might pivot.
They might do anything, but I think we know what they're all about. So they're not going to find it so easy to brown nose us now.
Let's end with talking a little bit about you. You give up this life that you live out, your professional life in finance as an investment banker, and you come back. And I don't know how many people remember, but you initially joined the Congress.
Correct.
And then you leave the Congress to join the Trinamool. Why did you choose the Congress at that time?
My family were Congress voters. And remember, we grew up in a system where, where you basically had the Congress as the only national party in those days. And either you came from a family that was left oriented, or you came from a family that was the Congress. These were the choices. I mean, we didn't grow up in a world where there was a BJP or where there was anything. And I came from a Congress voting family. So it was natural that I was drawn to the Congress. But when I wanted to be in the state and in Bengal, and at that time, like I said, it was that everyone in the Congress, Mamata had moved out and started the Trinamool. So you couldn't, and the Congress and the left were in a coalition together in the center. So you couldn't find the left in the state on a Congress wicket. So which is why I moved to the Trinamool.
And did you ever reconsider that?
No, I had a wonderful time at the Congress, and I'm having a wonderful time with the Trinamool. So this is a part of a political journey.
Did you ever regret joining politics?
Not at all. I feel like, and especially at the end of this today, Barkha, when I just realized most of the world are sheep. Everyone is just followers. So if God has blessed me with I don't want to sound too grand or whatever, but if God has blessed me with a spine and blessed me with the courage to take on naysayers and to akla cholo, then I think that our country needs this. And I'm so glad that I'm here. And it's because of Mamata Di, it's because of Akhilesh, it's because of, all of the others who stood against this nonsense. And I played my very small part in it also.
You've spoken so much about the messages for Modi. Is there something for you and the opposition to learn as well from this verdict?
Yes, that if you are true to the cause and you do not stray and you stick to your path. So don't play, they want you to play their game. Right? I'm so glad we stuck to our path. And we said, we're not playing soft Hindutva. Sorry, we don't need a certificate. We're not going to the temple. We're boycotting it. We're not going to we'll go to our temple when we feel like it. We won't go when you feel like it. We're not going to this parliament opening with half-naked seers turning into a religious ceremony. We don't believe in it. That's not what it's about. And sticking to it. So I think what it's taught us is the public has rewarded us for sticking to what we believe in and having the strength to do that.
But globally, elites, and you and I would qualify as that, liberal elites, are having to readapt themselves to a hyper-partisan, very shrill world, fueled, and those divisions are amplified by social media. And we're all having to learn either a new language or how to make our old language relevant in this new ecosystem. What have you learned for yourself? There are people who look at you and say, Mawa, you snob, Mawa, you're an elite, Mawa, you're a Khan market gang, whatever. These tropes that we hear.
You have to be true to yourself.
You can't be inauthentic.
Like Polonius told us in Hamlet, this above all, to thine own self be true. If you are true to yourself and you stick to it, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It honestly doesn't matter. That's the first rule. The second thing is that I think if you are not walking the talk, if you're sitting in an armchair and discussing, and then you find 9 people in the room are suddenly on Trump's side and you're the only Democrat left in the room and you decide, oh, I've had enough, and you get in the car and go home. That's different. But I think for people like us who are walking the talk, we don't have the option to get in the car and go home and leave the conversation. We are the conversation. We make the conversation. So when you make the conversation, you have to make sure that you stick to it. So I think that people like us, like for example, you must have come under intense pressure. I met someone today at lunch, in fact, who said, you're going for an interview with Barkha, the anti-national. And he was a young kid, so I let it pass. But basically he said Barkha, the anti-national. The fact that there's an entire ecosystem that throws all of this around is, that's what Modi has reduced this country to. And that's what I feel terrible about. And that's why I feel that it's very important for us, you in journalism or me in politics, or, each of us play our role. And we have to be true to what we think India should be.
What has been the toughest thing for you as we end this conversation?
The toughest thing for me has been actually physical. It hasn't been mental. Mentally, it's been absolutely okay. It was tough because I got through my surgery on the 8th of Jan, I think, moving out of the house, and then I got a secondary hemorrhage, and then literally I was campaigning from the 1st of March. So I didn't have a great recovery. So I think for once in my life, I always thought I was Iron Woman and Uber Woman, and I'm really fit and healthy, which touch wood I am. But I think physically, I've been through a bit of a harsh time. Physically, but emotionally, it was okay.
Is it true that your mother was ready to step in if they'd arrested you?
Yes, my mother said that. My mother said that, I'll file your nomination, give me a power of attorney. So I think that was very good, because most people, they worry about their parents.
Yeah.
Why do people adjust or kind of strike deals with people as vile as the BJP? It's because somebody is compromised. You don't want to cause problem to your wife or your kids, or you don't want to cause problem to your parents, or, it's somebody else. So in my case, had I thought that, my parents would get a heart attack if the CBI came home, I might have reacted differently. But in this case, they were like, bring it on. So I think that was great.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Baraka. Thank you.